A nation's culture resides in the hearts and minds of its people. That is so true when I walk into this museum, the National Museum of Anthropology, Archaeology, and History of Peru. It houses more than 100,000 different artifacts spanning the whole entire human occupation of what is now known as Peru.
As early as the 16th century, ancient China and Latin America were connected with ships sailing across the ocean. Ships loaded with silk and porcelain set sail from southern China ports toward Latin America through the maritime Silk Road. It set friendly cultural exchanges between the two sides.
National Museum of Archaeology, Anthropology, and History of Peru.
Thank you so much.
Well, we have a very special exhibition right now.
The collection shows over 10,000 years of history. We came to the museum this time, discovering the artifacts of ancient civilizations in Peru and having an in-depth look at the most dazzling and the most legendary treasures of the land.
Here you can see, for example, one of the most iconic pieces in our country, probably as iconic as Machu Picchu itself.
Really?
We call it tumi, and it was a ceremonial knife, but also worked as a symbol of power, almost like a scepter for one of the kings that ruled the north coast of Peru before the Incas.
Wow, it's very delicately carved.
And it represents what they believe was the god that created this important society called Lambayeque. Another important part of the economy of Peru that also requires special technologies is the ocean. Okay? And our ancestors, as you can see in the different representations in pottery, were very good at sailing the seas and the rivers. Here you can see a very important piece to our collection and also to this exhibition.
Wow.
Perhaps you noticed that this makes the logo of the exhibition.
Yeah, the pedals?
This is a rope.
Or the rope and paddles,
made out of wood. But if you look at the handle, you can see a very exquisite carving of these designs that represent birds.
So back and forth, yeah?
Back and
the
forward.
Pairs of birds.
Exactly. That's a very common thing in the art of ancient Peru.
This paddle belongs to a culture called Chincha, and they were a very powerful people. They talked face to face to the Inca, and they navigated along the coast and were merchants without money though, but they exchanged the different products up until the coast of Ecuador and probably a bit further on.
The museum's current special exhibition focused on ancient beliefs and technologies. We can also find that Peruvians have valued the ocean and sailing since ancient times. For example, the Costco shipping port, Peru's Chancay terminal, is a landmark project under the Belt and Road Initiative. After completion, it will become a key transport hub and logistics center along the Pacific coast of South America. This will, in turn, help with expanding trade in the region. From Chancay to Shanghai has already become a popular phrase locally. And here, the National Museum of Archaeology, Anthropology, and History of Peru also has a large collection of artifacts unearthed in Chancay, which preserves the past of the harbor.
You have more to show me?
Yes, of course. We have here the Chancay style, and it's a very valued collection for us.
So vivid. How many years were they dating back in history?
This is not that old. This is dates from the 1300s.
Wow, it's old. It's old.
Well, now it's old.
It's old. And there are so many of them. Where did you find them?
In Chancay, in the region very close to where the new port is located.
Really?
Yes.
I really wonder, these sleeping beauties, what they would think about all these changes.
It's very impressive. It's a symbol of modern times.
Yeah. This is such a, in a way, exhilarating trip to discover the cultures, and especially the crossroads between the Chinese and the Peruvian cultures. Earlier, Rafael, you led me through an unprecedented trip in the museum. Now, in retrospect, what do you think is the biggest and the most important thing people should know about the museum?
We have the largest and most complete collections of Peruvian history, pre-Hispanic and also colonial and Republican. And many people visit the museum. Half of our visitors are students, school students, and we have to show them everything that makes history make sense to them. So
What makes sense to them?
the link between history and themselves. I think what is important to for them to discover.
So the philosophical question, isn't it? Where am I from?
Where I am from, what I am, what I want to be, and what is my link with this country and this world.
Beautifully said. I think our conversation today is really trying to answer in our own humble way some of those questions. Thank you for that philosophical opening in a way. And Rubén, you've been living here. In fact, your family, this is already the third generation.
Sure, yes.
How are you answering questions that Rafael just raised?
Well, it's a very interesting conversation because, as I already say, I'm the third generation from Chinese descendants. And I think also I'm Peruvian. So you can share, in the same person, Peruvian culture and Chinese culture. So this is the way you link both cultures in one person. And also, of course, I'm very proud to be Peruvian and also to have Chinese blood because, my grandparents immigrated to this country, to Peru, in the 30s of the 20th century. So, these kind of things, like already Rafael mentioned, make you think yourself who I am. I'm Peruvian, but I also have Chinese blood.
So Rodrigo, what is your story here?
Well, my father's family is Peruvian, and it's not only Peruvian, they are Peruvian from Cusco. Used to be the capital city of the Inca Empire. And my mom's family is Cantonese, ethnicity Kejia, Hakka. So I am fourth generation. That's why I don't say that I come from a Chinese family. I say I come from a Tusan family. That is how we call Chinese Peruvian people here. So I grew up in an environment when they speak Hakka language and Cantonese and Spanish, and having different meals and combinations of Peruvians and Chinese every day. So for me, think about this relationship between China and Peru is the easiest way. It's something that is not happening now. It's something that already happened more than 175 years in the past. So not only for us, we are Chinese descendants, but for all the Peruvians, it's a very natural combination between Chinese and Peruvian cultural elements here in Peru.
Cherishing history also is part of the Chinese life. Rubén, if you go to China, people will bring out their family trees for you and the biggest family albums you will see, and also you would hear stories coming from a family talking about where their ancestors might be coming from,
Yes.
a few thousand years ago even. You were living in China, right?
Yes.
So how do you see this similarity both for the Peruvians and also for Chinese back in China about looking for roots? They're very much desire of looking for roots.
Yes, it happens when you are to recover your Chinese, roots. When I live in China, I started really to visit a lot of places, to see how rich is the Chinese culture. For example, Rafael mentioned about the different, materials that the Peruvians use to have a lot of things. I remember, for example, when I went to Xi'an and visited, the terracotta warriors, for me was a very great experience to see how it's possible to see so tall warriors made of ceramics, and they still keep, and somehow they keep the colors, and the number of the warriors, and
And the varieties. Every one of them have very different
faces,
facial expressions.
Right? So basically, that gave to me a necessity to continue discover the rich of the Chinese culture, and at the same time, I say myself, okay, it's also necessary to share our Peruvian culture with the world.
Talking about that, in your museum, Rafael, there was one special exhibition of terracotta warriors.
Yes, in 2016, in the previous APEC, the two terracotta warriors were the stars of a Chinese exhibition that were brought by President Xi Jinping, and they were admired really by so many people here in Peru. First, because original Chinese pieces don't come here too often.
And they don't go to other places too often either. They are
Right.
really the antiques.
Yes.
But this reminds people of, the whole history on the sea. Many of our immigrants coming from China came to Peru through the sea. And even before that, there were exchanges already between the East and this part of Latin America and the Caribbean countries. Rodrigo, I know you've been doing research about both Chinese immigrants and also that part of history. Can you maybe help us to understand better about the relationship between the ship, the boat, and also the history as well as the cross cultures we have been talking about?
For us, the descendants of Chinese, the sea and the ocean have meant the path, the way of our ancestors. The way that the first Chinese migrants came to Peru, they came here from 1849, after they started to come to Cuba and to the west coast of the US. And from that moment, we haven't stopped to receive Chinese immigrants that we feel as a privilege, because all of them have been hardworking, gave us discipline, an idea of the work, an idea of how to do business, an idea of how to have a healthy relation with education. They contribute to our concept of unity in the family. And this is very important. I know that so many people refers and thanks the presence of Chinese in terms of business, but I want to put the stress on the culture, the enrich our culture. In this country where the culinary, the gastronomy is very important, Chinese are very, very important because they are part of our gastronomy and the astronomical identity.
Oldest connection we have with China that is known and proven is in the 17th century, when we have the galleon of Manila. That was the route that linked Callao in Peru with Acapulco in Mexico, and from there to Manila. And it was a galleon that brought much merchandise to rich Lima that could pay for luxury goods in very large quantities. So from there is our first, I would say, fluent link with China.
And also the immigrants came from there.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know you have a treasured book of photos of early generation of Chinese immigrants in Peruvian culture. Would you like to
Yes.
show it to us?
Yes, of course.
Wow. So tell us more about them.
Well, this book collects the photographs collected by Couret brothers. They were French photographers that came to Lima in the mid-19th century and had a studio in downtown Lima to picture the rich families that could afford to have
A photo then,
the
right?
new technology of the
So what
times.
has it recorded for us?
For us, we have Chinese recent migrants
Show it
that
to us.
were here.
Yeah.
For example, we
Let's
have
open it. Yeah.
a Peruvian family.
Yeah. So it's
with,
a mixed, right?
Right.
This is a family photo at the cover. Oh, wow. Look at these three gentlemen. It's right. Look at that.
Oh yeah, we still can see this,
Can you
this close
recognize
child.
them? Yes?
Yeah, from the end of Qin dynasty. Yeah.
Yes. The costume.
And you can tell they were not the agricultural laborers or the Wano workers. They were
They dress elegantly. Obviously, they're well off.
right. They and they could pay for the photograph.
That's important. Yes. More are coming.
Yes.
So they are now in the Western costume, huh?
Yeah. And
Emphasizing on education, possibly.
And at the Western style, that is something probably they are investors coming from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
From 1880, we started to receive people from San Francisco and Hong Kong as well.
Why do you prepare this special photo album for us?
it shows the first few years of the beginnings of the large Chinese community in Peru, and because it shows that they had already started to merge into Peruvian society.
Across the mountains and waters. I'm in Lima, the capital of Peru, this week for the annual gathering of APEC economies. They collectively have become the world economy's growth engine and the backbone for global development. Yet, as global uncertainties rise, will they join hands to weather the storm and be a renewed inspiration for innovation and cooperation? I'll be covering the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting and moderating panels at the APEC CEO Summit. Well, in search for answers, from the meeting point of civilizations and cultures to the meeting rooms of APEC economies. Join me and find out how APEC will work its way to the future. And now, a few hundred years later, we also understand there's a fresh story going on the sea. It's the Chang'an port. From Shanghai to Chang'an, this route involving both the sea and the land has already cut the traveling time of any goods coming from Latin America or Caribbean countries to China and to Asia? Almost half of the time, or even more.
First, because my grandparents lived in Shanghai for many years. They had Chinese restaurant, they do business. I used to go there when I was a kid.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, and my grandparents, they have business, Chinese restaurant we call Chifas. And when I knew about that project, I was happy because, you know, Shanghai port is going to become the hub between South America and Asia. And also the port is going to help to trade all the, you know, the products, for example, from Brazil also as well, to reduce the, you already say, the time to send the products to China and also to receive, you know, products from China as well to Peru. So I think in the following years, Shanghai is going to be one of the most important places in Latin America. It's going to be also, there are a lot of benefits. Also to give jobs to Peruvian people. It's going to be very helpful for the young people, you know, who would like to, you know, to be interested in China and also with Asia in particular. Yeah. So also it's going to provide, you know, a platform for the new technology.
All the people who follows the destiny and all the development of China knows that every time Chinese government takes some decisions, they are very aware of the history. Sometimes the places they choose, the cities, the names they choose for new projects are very, very linked with the history. So that's why I feel it's very special that because all we have talked about how important Peru in Latin America is for China, Peru is now one more time the window and the gate for this new era of the relationship with China and Latin America. So I think it's very meaningful having this harbor, this port here in Peru.
Mr. Director, Rafael, when I visited the museum, you also told me about possibilities for Chinese and Peruvian academics to work together to discover each other's culture.
We Peruvians should go out to the world and, of course, let the world come to us. You cannot live in a global world without opening your eyes to the whole world. And many nationalities have been here doing research. The Germans, North Americans, Japanese, and so on. But we haven't seen the Chinese around.
So you welcome them. Maybe Rubén and Rodrigo, you should tell your friends.
Of course, and that'll be good for them and for us. Not only to come as experts in their own history, but also, if they have, interest in Peruvian history.
Rodrigo, some suggest that, Latin America and the Caribbean countries are the so-called backyard of the United States. And whether people here are really interested in other parts of the world. What do you say?
I think that 21st century, for us, is the opportunity to stop to be anybody's backyard.
Be your own front yard.
Exactly. The opportunity of have more partners in the world give us freedom to decide, give us the possibility to choose, not to depend only of one or two. So I think this is very important. That's why we Peruvians and Chinese all are committed to continue building a very fair and balanced relationship between us and growth all together.
Yeah.
I'm totally sure that a lot of Peruvian talented, young talented, are ready for going to China, for continue studying, for learning the language, to become good professionals and bring to Peru the techniques that are being developed in China.
You think about the rise of the awareness of identity these days in the so-called the global south, I mean developing countries, emerging economies, places that were once as colonies, that were once mainly the the places where you have many to travel around the world as hard labor, such as China. The rising awareness about their history, about their own identities, about how their identity has made what they are today. That's really amazing.
It's an important moment and definitive moment, I think, now, as opposed to the previous centuries, where a national identity was not so, even though we had a name that united us, like Peru was a very old name and everybody was associated to it, but as an identity, it's taken us a bit more time. Yeah. And now I think we'll agree with Rodrigo that we are ready to face the 21st century with what we have with us.
Common folks are reading these cultures. I mean, you guys are sitting here because you are cultural experts. How do they like the other's culture in a way?
First of all, I can say that it's still a pending task that to teach better the history in the textbooks, no? And to give a complete idea what is, for example, China as a country, and also show how Peruvian is also as a country, no? And if you understand each other, the way that you saw, the way that you talk with another partner with different culture, I think it will be easier to do things, diplomatic relations, academic relations, business relations. So it's a good way that very important for both sides in order to understand each other, to know the culture better, history, and also of course the language is possible.
I really think that knowing more about the others is the best vaccination against intolerance, discrimination, xenophobia, and is the way to understand in a more complete idea the human condition. And for all the 20th century, and more than 20th century, the world has been in this way. Everybody receiving culture from Europe and the global north to all our continents. Maybe this continent, this century is an opportunity to all of us to know each other, but know by Europe in a more directly way. So in this way, for example, we Latin Americans can know more about Asia, Middle East, Africa.
Directly, not through the third party's eyes.
No,
yes.
Yeah, and that's pretty good for having a more complete idea of the cultures of the world.
Rodrigo, Rubén, and Rafael. Appreciate it. Thank you.